I did a recent video about this book. This is not a book about Benedict Cumberbatch. And I talked about how this is such a great book for writers to inspire them to do their writing. And it is. But I want to keep talking about this book because it's another thing, which is a perfect example of a memoir that is about something bigger than the memoir writer themselves. So many memoir writers get trapped in this thing of writing about their own selves, which sounds crazy because that's what memoir is. It's a story about our own selves. But a good memoir needs to be about something bigger. It needs to make room for the reader. It needs to draw us in. It needs to take that individual story that you're writing and say something universal about whatever it is that you're experiencing. And in this book, Tabitha Carvan does exactly that, and she does it so beautifully and so powerfully and so explicitly that it's just a great example of what memoir writers need to do. So let me try to back up and explain. A lot of times as a book coach, I see memoir manuscripts that are really flat. And I'm not talking about the events that happen in them. Usually, when someone's writing memoir, it's because something dramatic or interesting or different or unique has happened to them and they are writing about that. And oftentimes, if you ask why are they writing about that, which is question one of my blueprint method, they'll answer something like, well, I want to help other people who are going through what I went through, or I want to spare them the suffering that I went through by sharing my story, or I want them to feel less alone in what they're going through. And those are all powerful motivations, but those stories can still end up being quite flat and just sort of dull. And when you're reading them, it's just like, well, these are the things that happen. And again, even if they're dramatic, they don't make any room for the reader. They're very actually self-centered onto the writer. I remember one time I was coaching somebody whose partner had received a heart transplant, and they had taken the blog posts that they wrote during that time for family and friends, that they had started a practice of writing every day to tell family and friends what was going on in this situation of the heart transplant. And people were hanging on every word because this was someone that they knew and loved and wanted the best for. But when pulled together as a memoir for strangers who didn't know the players in this drama, it just came across as sort of, then this happened and then this other thing happened and then we were worried about this and then this other thing happened. There's just a flatness to it. And what I try to convey to the writers like that is, well, what's the bigger thing you're writing about that the reader can see themselves in, that the reader can place themselves in, that they can hang on to in that work? And it involves, I sometimes use the phrase, letting it breathe, letting the story breathe a little bit more, so that it's not so tightly focused on you and this thing that happened to you, but that there's something bigger, there's something deeper, there's something broader in it. And oftentimes the story then becomes about that bigger idea. And I use this motion because I'm making a sort of archway or an umbrella over, here's your story, and there's a bigger thing that's over it. That's what we're trying to get at. And it's a very difficult thing to explain or describe. You can probably hear I'm rambling a little bit trying to get at it. But when you see it, when you see a memoir that does it, you just instantly know it's like that's it. And that's what this book does. And what it does so well is that the Tabitha Carvan is writing about her story and her obsession with Benedict Cumberbatch, but she's also writing about all of us, and she is specifically speaking to women who tamp down what we love and who dismiss what we're passionate about and who don't give ourselves the due that that we are owed to honor the things that interest us and that we care about us. And that is the bigger idea that she's writing about. And she writes about it in such a way that her curiosity about the topic and her exploration of the topic and her her way of making it bigger than her small story it's just so masterful that you can't help but see yourself in these pages. And there were some passages that where I would just stop and almost gasp at how directly it felt like she was speaking to me, like, oh gosh, yes, that was me as a child, or that was me as a mother with two daughters, and how I treated them, and how I spoke to them about their passions and their interests. And she just nails it, and she's speaking to us, and she's making room for us, and there's that space in her story for the reader. And all great memoirs do this. Every great memoir that you love does this. And you can tick them off, whether it's Cheryl Strayed's Wild, or Elizabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, Love, or Danny Shapiro's books do this really beautifully. But this example is just my most recent and my most favorite, if you're writing memoir, to see how somebody makes the story bigger than just the story.